Welcome to week 16 of the Three Takes on AI podcast. Today, our host is Campbell, and our focus is to share our own experiences with AI, including the tools we use to do our jobs. We invite you to listen, share your takes, and subscribe to our podcast at threetakesonai.com or follow us on Spotify.
Brian, as you were saying before we hit the record button, this is podcast number 16, correct?
I think it's 16.
Yeah. So, sort of, I guess, almost halfway through one full year of creating valuable content, insight, and thoughts that hopefully our listeners are benefiting from. But I think the approach that we wanted to take today was to discuss a little bit about, the AI tools that we use to do our work. And admittedly, I'm an independent consultant nowadays, and I have a staff of AI workers behind me. And I've got a social media specialist, I've got a communication specialist, I have a project manager, I've got a researcher. To a certain degree, I have an accountant. All of these are AI tools that I use, and I'll be very upfront. I use a broad array, but I use primarily Perplexity Max. One of the reasons why I chose Perplexity is it gives me access to multiple models, not just OpenAI, Anthropic, or Gemini, but other models as well. And the caveat that I'll put in there, which I'll come back to on the data, on the, sort of some data points around that, is that the discipline that I have to apply to the AI tools that I use, so the constraint that I have to put into place, is the same discipline that I sell to enterprises and organizations. So I fundamentally have to ensure that I am doing ethical AI practices with any of the tools that I use and the assessments that I go through in using those tools. I use Devon Think. I'm not too, for people that have Macs, I think you're probably aware of Devon Think. It's a great file management system. It has AI integration built into it now. I have a local model where I can do analysis summarization without any of the data leaving my computer. That's a critical factor on my sort of governance practice. I use Spark Mail, which is an AI assistant embedded in it, which makes it way easier to find an email or an attachment that I'm trying to find in a shorter period of time. But anyway, the gist of this is that yes, I use AI, but the end of the day, I own all output. I own all creation. I use it as a brainstorming tool more than anything from a Perplexity perspective and a research point of view. Because the great thing about Perplexity is that it gives you all of the source data, the source links that you can cross-check and verify. It is AI, so it potentially is always going to have the ability to hallucinate, which is a polite term for making an error. So I sort of embed that. But you know, all of the tools that I use, I fundamentally believe that with all of those AI employees that I have, I'm able to scale an independent freelance organization of myself to a higher degree of capability. That allows me then to focus on the work at hand with my clients. I don't have to worry about all the peripheral activity that, to a certain degree, that I'd be doing and working probably, you know, close to 20 hours a day to be able to do on my own to be able to maintain a business. But I wanted to hit on a couple of sort of data points here. Um, the US workforce is made up of about 36% independent workers. And like myself or Brian and Mike. And when you when you look at that number, the 36, and it reflects AI adoption, the AI adoption of an independent solo entrepreneur or freelancer is reflective of what's happening in the enterprise world at the same time. in that there's a high degree of AI adoption. There's potentially a huge governance gap between the two aspects of what's happening. So there's a high degree of risk associated to 36% of the workforce in the US if they don't effectively understand the constraints that you have to put on the AI tools that you're using. So, as an example, I've built a customized skill that is a governance skill that I use within Perplexity. I use with Claude Code for when I'm doing coding, that ensures that at least it flags and says, oh, wait a minute. You're sort of going outside of the boundaries or the guardrails or the rumble strips, whatever you want to call it, of the rules of the data that you're trying to use. And so it sort of keeps me in check automatically as well. Most independent freelancers, I think, don't do that. So there's a high degree of risk associated with PII data, client data, financial data, et cetera, potentially being put out into the broad sort of realm of models. Because at our level, as an independent, we don't have enterprise agreements with Anthropic. We don't have enterprise agreements with OpenAI or Google. So we don't have the ability to negotiate how our data is not going to be used or repurposed to train models. So, there's a productivity upside to be able to use all of these tools. And the contrarian side of it is that if you're not aware of the risks of the tools that you use, and that's obviously what I get paid to do with clients, is to let them know how to do that effectively, then you're going to put yourself at risk. There's a high degree of risk associated with using AI tools as an independent individual as well. And I also, on the personal side, as an example, I use AI tools in the gardening, in a garden environment for me, identifying disease, insects, identifying a plant, whether it's a weed, and or whether I'd have to dig it up. So there's a broad array of AI tools that we all use on a daily basis, but you always have to take a contrarian view and say, what are the risks with me using this tool? And so that's where I'm going to set the stage for the two of you guys. So I'm not too sure who wants to take it first, Brian or Mike.
I'm happy to go. So I have been on a journey. I think it's been 3 years, Mike, since you and I started talking about AI.
Yeah.
And I started when ChatGPT, you and I really started talking about this, I think when ChatGPT came out. We tried to create a sales automation kind of tool, if you will, and that sort of um, didn't go very far, but that's fine. You learn and experiment. And the reason I bring that up is my journey's been a little bit different than Campbell's in the sense that it all led to this idea of some kind of the business of AI approach to strategy, and I started out beginning of last year writing a series of articles for Tech Channel on this business of AI discussion and a roadmap. ChatGPT at that point was going along for the ride and helped me edit, look for content, create some tables and things that made the content better. And then I ventured into creating a Udemy class, and it did a good job of helping me along with that. And then starting at the beginning of the year, I've been working on a database and a tool application that brings it to life. And ChatGPT has done a great job of helping me with SQL and things that I'm probably not as deeply skilled as Campbell. But what's happening to me right now, it seems like the updates to ChatGPT, it seems to be sanitizing more content than I would like it to do. And so that brought me to leverage Claude more, and Gemini. So right now, the three of them are competing for my attention. And the reason I bring that up is um, I'm finalizing my website. They've all provided me quotes from documents. But to your point, Campbell, guess what? Most of those quotes don't exist. They do a great job of reading the document. They create what they think is a quote, and then you go look for it, and that's not there. So the human responsibility here stays, and that is we really they do a great job of things that you need them to do. But Campbell, to your point, if we're not looking at them to um, and making sure we provide our personal governance, if you will, over them. ChatGPT for me does a great job of the image generation. All the images generated on our website come from either they're my ideas and my thought and my negotiation, but they are ChatGPT. They've certainly sped up and improved their image generation, I think, over the last few years. But it's also a matter of juggling, and that is, I think, the critical thing to me would be that people are looking at using different tools in the AI world is to experiment with them and also not, I sort of feel like hate to admit it, I'm about to get a divorce with ChatGPT and I'm taking it personally, and that's embarrassing to me. It's like we've been on this ride together, and now we are. Claude is being much more objective and much more critical in what I'm doing, and much more critical of itself, which is important when you think of helping people with an AI strategy. I've been a Grammarly user for quite a while, even before they were AI. So what that's always hanging in the background when I'm writing content to help me along the way. I'm seeing more of that kind of capability showing up um, in email, like Gemini and I mean, like Gmail and other things. So be interesting to see how they evolve. But I do think we're in a position right now where I think number one, to understand what they're doing, and also they're all beginning to change their licensing policies. They appear to want you to think they're lowering the price, but I think they're actually giving them the opportunity to charge you more. And so you have to be aware also not just of what you're doing with them, but what you're paying for them. So right now I'm paying for Gemini that just reduced their price, but then limited what you could do, I think, in scale. I'm paying for ChatGPT and I'm paying for Claude, and my guess is somewhere in the next 30 days, I'll break up. I won't pay ChatGPT anymore, and then we'll see where we go from there. So I think that part of it is it's been a great, to your point, Campbell, I could have never, what hopefully you'll see in the next week with the solution, I could never have launched it on my own in 6 months. It would have taken me probably a year and a half because I would have had to go. I'm remembering what I forgot about SQL, but it helped me get my way through that. So I think choosing the right tools, making sure to be objective about trading them up. I look at Perplexity at times, but I'm more perplexed than aided by it. But since I'm challenged today of getting good quotes, I'm gonna try it again, thanks to Campbell's advice. And Mike, I'll hand it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you. So I was thinking about this topic this morning, and the broad array of AI solutions that I'm using. I like the way Campbell thinks about this as almost as employees or assistants in my life. And I was thinking about it this morning as I was changing settings on my Google Nest. For the air conditioning and making sure the heat is off. And I found a setting that controls the humidity in the house. And I live near the ocean, so humidity coming into the next few months can be a real issue if you don't manage it. I was like, oh, that's cool. So now I don't have to think about that anymore either. Um, and I'm going to come back to the personal part, by the way, because I'm going to go back to conversations about introspection and lived experience. But from a day-to-day business standpoint, I have almost completely de-scoped use of ChatGPT. And I use Claude, Perplexity, and Gemini. And what's happened is Gemini, when I need graphics, or maybe some as I've talked about before, pulling a bunch of content together. Perplexity is the go-to research tool and it is rarely wrong. And the level of detail that it provides is just super, super valuable and saves me hours and hours of time every week. I'm using Claude more for writing. In full disclosure, so I do short form content and then one long form content piece on Friday, which goes out on Substack. I use Claude for that piece. So I write my article, I put it into Claude. It now knows my voice. All I have to do is say, write this for my Substack, and it chugs away for 2 minutes, and I get an article that I can just go back and change a few things to put it back into my voice and put it into Substack. That saves me hours a week. Um, my favorite AI solution, though, which people are becoming more aware of, is my lead generation. So I work with a solution called Boardy, Boardy .ai. Boardy surfaces anywhere from 1 to 3 introductions almost every single day to other founders, investors. I've tightened up the criteria, and it just works beautifully. Um, it's about to become billable. I'm prepared to pay for it if I have to. But it has generated more money from my business, I would say, in the last 6 months than anything else I've done. And I think that it won't replace SDRs or BDRs, but it's going to be a major part of the stack. It will also become more useful to the investor community. And then so I want and I use Opus Clips for my for short form video that I put out on Instagram and stuff every day. I've got a friend who created an app on Lovable to help also generate content. So when I have writer's block, because I put content out every day, it helps me with that. And I can do a carousel or a survey with it. So again, it's all about efficiency. But I'm going to come back to the point that I've made several times in our 16 or 15 prior AI podcasts, and that is AI doesn't replace experience and lived experience and introspection. So last week, I have two automatic garage doors, and one of them just stopped working. I did everything possible to troubleshoot this. I disconnected, reconnected sensors, took my air compressor, blew the sensors out, pulled the boards off the walls, cleaned out the boards. Could not figure this out. I used Perplexity. I chatted with the manufacturer, couldn't figure it out. It kept coming back to interference. It's like there's no interference. So I finally had somebody come out yesterday. Kid, maybe 22 years old. Took him 20 minutes. He goes, well, he said, I checked everything. Everything is fine. He said, but there is interference. And as we were talking, he goes, oh, there's something white in that sensor. I said, oh, I thought that was part of the sensor. So there's two eyes, right, to keep the door from shutting.
Yeah.
The interference was a spider nest that had been built in the sensor. There was AI gave me over a dozen different solutions. None of them were check inside to see if there's that's the human experience. That's the guy who's done hundreds and hundreds of garage doors, who can stand in the garage and go, there's something in the sensor. Problem solved in 3 minutes. Still cost me a couple $100. But that's, the point is, we have to be careful not to lean in our personal and professional lives so hard into AI that we forget that humans have experience and humans can solve problems that AI just can't do. Not yet, but maybe not ever.
Right.
Yeah, I wanted to add one quick thought. One of the reasons I've moved to Claude is it's much better at reading a website. So right now I do my web development in Wix, and I can publish a temporary website, and ChatGPT will be hit and miss whether it will allow itself to read that website, but Claude's very good at reading through it and going and giving me feedback. Not just, it can't visually see it, but it reads the code, the CSS and all of the website, and can advise me on what may be causing challenges or not. So that really is probably the number one reason I started to use Claude. And then to your point, Mike, it's doing a great job on the content side for me.
Yeah, I think if I look at again some other other data points in regards to just AI use, whether it's for an independent such as myself and you guys, or an organization. Some of the data points are that, that again, 7% of organizations are planning to reduce headcount through AI automation. So, but there's AI washing that's going on where companies are reducing headcount, not for AI, but just due to the fact that they just need to reduce their headcount, and they're going to point and blame something that is a bit uh, sort of nebulous to try to identify. 68% of companies and individuals running their companies expect higher productivity and upskilling to happen, which is a good thing. And so I think the net effect of all of that is, and I did write this down, that when you get that benefit, me as an individual utilizing the AI tools and incorporating proper governance practices within that, the net effect is that the value really shifts from fundamentally doing certain pieces of the work to more sort of governing and directing the work at the end of the day. So Mike, you and Brian, I mean, you both allude to it that you use AI tools to help develop either content, SQL, whatever the terms may be, but you are the human in the loop that is overseeing and governing that work to get to the end result, the end product, or the sort of the deliverable at that point. And I think that is a critical factor. The other piece that's in here is that we obviously talk about AI models and AI technologies that we're using. And even the best and brightest models, to your point, Mike, are not going to say to you, "Hey, maybe you should check for spider webs," within the infrastructure, because obviously that's something that it hasn't learned. But there's this other piece now that's out there, agentic AI. And so that's why, as an example, I mentioned earlier that I developed a skill. Well, skills are things that AI agents need in order to guide their behavior. Um, I fundamentally see, and again, you could argue this because there are people like us that are using AI, and then there is a broad array of probably 70% of the US population, I believe the data is, that are not using AI at this point. They mistrust it. They don't understand it. They think it's going to take their job away. So there's a sort of a smaller population or cohort of individuals that are leveraging AI and seeing potentially the benefit and the risks at the same time. But you now throw agentic AI into the mix, and things become very complex very fast. And that is where, again, having the constraints and the knowledge and the experience as a human to know how to use the tool and when not to use the tool is fundamental to realizing the benefit of it. Yeah, I think it's interesting because for those of us who live in it, it seems almost like a no-brainer to how the benefit that you get from it. But on a day-to-day basis, there are people the majority of people that you come across will either say, well, AI told me this and AI told me that, or, in a mocking way, that they don't necessarily, truly see the value in it because they almost are scared of it. So I think and I don't know if that's going to change. I guess that things could happen that we could hit the bubble once we go through these IPOs and reality sets in. I think that there could be a bubble and a crash. And when that happens, all of the people that were sort of in the background mistrusting AI use and tools for a personal use basis, they're probably going to say, well, yeah, you see, I was right. Anyway, I'm starting to ramble, but the point being is that um, there are many benefits that one can get from it, but understanding the limitations of the tools is a key factor on how you use it and any benefit that you get from it.
So we're a bit at over 20 minutes. I was just going to say the limits of the tools are human and our choices as much as anything. I don't know, Mike, do you have anything you want to say before we wrap this up?
Just real briefly, something just to jump on something that the Campbell just said, and that is about the AI washing. And I think that it is irresponsible for corporations to do what they're doing in terms of laying people off and using AI as an excuse, because what it's doing is it's stoking the fear instead of educating the populace on all the great things that they can do. And it's also a lazy way of not actually improving your business. So,
Right.
Well, thank you, gentlemen.
yeah. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.